Good morning, ladies and gents. Good Sunday morning. And welcome in to another edition of A Different View. Y'all forgive my voice and stuff like that. I am still a little stronger, but still on the mend. Take some time here for me to get the voice back sometime, but we're still here. And we are still actively pursuing after truth and justice. So I did a little excerpt clip there that is necessary to speak for today, because this is truly, I know people like to shorten down the letters because they don't like saying the whole name. Some of that is just because people don't like saying the whole name. I am of a certain age to now realize that folks don't like giving certain credit. They like to make certain nicknames and catchphrases to things. So we will say it the long way on this platform. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day weekend, if you will. And this is a celebration of a man who truly gave his life and had his life taken in the realest sense of the word. In a time in this country, and forgive me because I'm a little bit emotional, because again, as a black person, as a person, because I think again, y'all have heard me do and gotten very passionate about a lot of different topics, and we're just going to take off here. This is the Sunday message, so y'all gonna hear me use some verses from the Bible. I do, again, like I'll always say, because I am unapologetically apologetic about what I believe in. And the unapologetic part is because you should stand up for what you believe in. The apologetic part is, again, talking about the study of the word apologize, I should say, from where you get apologetic, is the idea of making a case. And in the case of saying you're sorry about something, again, sorry to what may offend someone because of what I believe, that of which I'm unapologetic about. Which I believe everybody, hopefully y'all caught that a little bit. It's tragic, y'all, how Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. died. When you truly go into the study of it, it's rough. I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to allow people to get caught off on the distraction that is in how a person died. We're just going to deal with the fact that they died, and that they died early. This man died at 39 years old. And that is too young for someone who needed to continue speaking the word of truth when it comes to people unifying. There's no other way of saying that. There is no other way of saying that. The point is for people to unify, and the point of everything you've seen in history is the inability for people to unify. It's time we put that aside. There is no money. There is no governmental power position. There is nothing that the great creator has put down here that is anything bigger than living in peace. You are literally told to do all that is possible. We're talking from the Bible now, of which Again, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a minister from a family of ministers. And those who believed in the tenets of Christianity, even though, of course, we realize the further on down the line you go when you study the Bible and how it was translated, not the words that come from God, but what humans added into the Bible. And I got to be clear here, guys, again, that the King James translation, in which everyone reads, was made in 1611 as a gift to King James. This had nothing to do with transposing the holy words of God. It had something to do with appeasing humans. And again, your Bible talks about how God raises up kings and queens and how they fall. Now, verses will tell you that God takes them down. The truth is that's not what's happening. And I'm going to go into this verse here real quick so that y'all can understand what is really going on behind the scenes. This deals with temptation. And again, that which takes down people. Things like verses in the Bible that talk about a house being divided can't stand. Verses in the Bible that see again this pull back and forth, unfortunately, in which now again God has given people the choice to choose. And again, I'm sorry for how Christian this will get here for a little bit, but bear with me. You have been given the choice to choose, which is cool, right? Because you're not robotic in that sense. This isn't the simulation in that sense, because you can choose. Now, there are parameters within the guidelines of life, okay? We just cannot freewheel this thing, unfortunately, or fortunately, for however people want to look at it. But the truth is, you have choice, and there are rewards. And you guys have heard me go over this, but again, repetition is necessary for learning. So you have a choice. And with those choices are rewards and consequences. Because of the fact people choose so poorly, is the reason why these rewards and consequences are in place. You know, some of this stuff is not really hard to understand, and that's just why we're going to get into this verse here. We're getting in these lines of verses because it's just time to end the hoax, folks. It's really time to just put this away. And I think on this weekend, it is important to do so. It's time to start seeing your human brothers and sisters in a different light than what you were taught. And again, we're going to read some excerpts here from the history of and how it ties into some of the stuff here that's been happening recently, which has been pretty cool. That's the TV show Echo, and the Disney TV show Echo, and the Disney TV show What If. It's weird how we got to put like Disney in front of it, or Paramount TV. It's just a TV show, but I digress. So let's just dive in here. So again, when we're speaking on Israel, similar to Africa, you have, and other nations of the world, you have a diaspora. The word diaspora deals with those who have been scattered abroad. When you hear people talk about, I'm going to get into certain things that deal with African history. Seeing people use the word black, but again, when you look at the native cultures on North America, you start to see the words civilized tribes, recognized tribes, that lead you to believe that there's something within the government that was set in this union that didn't recognize or called others uncivilized, similar to the word pagan that we've talked about, where pagan deals with something that people will consider a belief outside the recognized norms. what is considered recognized. Again, when I think I truly do believe after looking and studying in history, this is just a thought here. For those who believe it, so be it. If you don't, so be it. The words civil and stuff like that have been horribly overused. Recognized have been horribly either over or underused, or, not used at all, really. And a lot of that has been done so that words could be put into what is the term laws to discredit and exclude people, which was much of the fight Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. went through for voting, for food, which is funny that the United States, this is documented stuff, you can look online, the United States and Israel were two nations during the last UN meeting, I believe in 2021, where the subject came up, whether food is a right for people or not. I don't know whether I've talked about this on my podcast, but if I haven't, I just said it. They both voted against it being a right for people to have food to eat. You need to seriously start questioning that which is, see, again, when you speak on democracy, and this is 2024, right? This is voting time. Everybody getting distracted by what Donald Trump is doing or what Joe Biden is doing or whatever their I'll just use the word underlings. They're not underlings, but all the sub-secretaries in this one and now whatever term they want to put in front of their name. All these different government officials, as I like to call them, because it baselines it a little bit better. Because they are government officials. They've been elected government officials, for the most part by the people, to what they thought is going to be good for them. Again, you're dealing with a government that does not, the game is not designed for you. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. went through and did some and said some things here that dealt with the truth to certain documents this nation has made to cover its sins, like the Bill of Rights. Because again, when you make a Bill of Rights and yet those enslaved helping you profit had no rights, that's not really a Bill of Rights, folks. That's a sham. Well, let me say it this way. It's a rights for those they consider to have rights. The great creator, the God, again, as we have termed that which is the great deity of all, okay, did not set it up that way. People are on an equal footing. But there's no up, down, left, right. And again, when we get into Valentine's Day, the same type of attitude has seeped over into relationships, which is no wonder why they end in divorce, they end in breakups, you have bad businesses. It's not actually a mystery, because when you go into a relationship thinking one is above the other, you're designed to fail. You've already started a process where your house is divided. You're a team. You go into that thing as we're just gonna bleed over a little bit because again, my heart is full today, folks. So we're gonna go in and y'all can take it as it is. Y'all are a team, and when you start doing this, I'm head of the house, and I'm this, that, and the other. It's not gonna work. I understand what they have taught people all this time, and it kind of you can hear the spring, like I like to say it, you hear the spring snap. But guys, this is not this, and a lot of this is the heart of this thing. Like I played in that clip there, doing what is right, doing is what of a higher purpose. That's what life's about, guys. This idea of chasing after, as they say in the streets, as the young people say, chasing after a bag. Because again, a bag of money, old school term, because bags of money like DuckTales, and for those who remember the cartoon DuckTales and Scrooge McDuck, and he's diving into his little safe for gold coins and bags of money flying all over the place. They're chasing the bag. Now, this ain't about money, guys. People have put that shiny coin, that brazen image, as a term is used in the Bible here, to distract you from the real thing, which is relationships. True, wholesome relationships. Relationships with people to the Creator, people to the earth, and all that's in the earth, the sea, the land. That's why you've got fights over the land, folks. It's a big old battle. When a lot of these different platforms, and again, because this was part of Dr. King's fight. Platforms today like Spotify, YouTube. Now again, this is just a side note here. This is where black folk need to put your money for once in the game here. Please put your money to where we are building up our own communities. Every place on the planet puts their money. Italians, Asians, Germans, English people. So like, we're just going to use the word nation here because it's a universal term. The nation of England, Irish people, Scottish people. You can go again. We've already dove into a little bit of it with Halloween, but the amount of endless fighting in Europe for land and control of themselves. And guys, it's not even people debate it because they don't want to change. But this isn't people will put terms on things, like they'll start doing this battle. And back in the 60s, it was really big, unfortunately, because again, people were not paying attention to the definition of words and phrases. There is no battle, folks, between capitalism and communism. There isn't. That is a farce between those, just no different than the American, what they call the American Revolutionary War. Again, that had nothing to do with America. Only thing it had to do with America was that it was on North American soil. That was an English war between England and England at who was going to take land from those who did not own it. They weren't working it. They had no right to it. They made up rights and made up a government on someone else's land, and then you wonder why it looks so sick around here the way it does. The constant power struggles. Why? Because this nation was birthed in an unfortunate power struggle. It's not conjecture. That's studying history. This is why they don't want it taught. And again, people thought Adolf Hitler was bad. Just all you got to do is look inside your shores and see what's going on. Europe transposed its sicknesses over here on these lands. And then over here on these lands, you see the copy of what the sickness was in Europe. That's all this is. Fighting between the church, which is a shame. That's why last episode I went into talking about how we are not supposed to be handling these arguments. Stop worrying about what Bishop T.D. Jakes is doing. We aren't supposed to be fighting over this stuff, fighting over doctrine. Why are we fighting over it? It's what you believe. Again, your choice now. It's what you believe. This is what I believe. We're both brothers and sisters in the faith. What are you fighting over? So if one group of people, whatever the name you want to put on it, from whoever the church father was that initially thought of the term. So whether you're dealing with Calvinists or Baptists, Reformists, Lutherans, and the spin-offs of all these different ones, guys, again, when you put the word denominate in something, your house is divided. End of story. Yes, there is a thing when you're dealing with expression and how you worship God. Yeah, I get that. But when you've gone to the point now where you can't even fellowship with someone else who believes in Christ the same as you, because one believes missionary work should be done a certain way and the other one thinks missionary work, what are we doing? The fact that racism so seeped itself into the church that you had to have the creation of the AME church is a shame. And when you look at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and his struggle in the South to unify. Now, see, here is the part where most black leaders today will get into it. And for those who are not black, this is just a good thing to come on in and kind of open the window a little bit and look at what going on in another person's house. This is good, because this, again, black folks are part of humanity, folks. Oh boy. The infighting that went on in what is so-called white people's culture. Same thing needs to stop. This is just stuff down here, folks. We can't take it with us. We can't take it with us. Again, you can talk to Hindus, you can talk to Buddhists, you're made of a light. For this is a universal thing that actually resides between most folks here, if I might be blunt. These possessions down here, people are fighting and killing each other over, and that includes over in the Middle East. We're fighting over wrong purpose, guys. We are. The great Creator made this to share down here. And again, share separately and collectively. Which is the reason that they killed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., because they did not want to share resources. That's all that had to do. That's all of the marches, all of the beatings, all of him going to jail. All of this had to do with not wanting to share. So let just to get that, just to get some of this stuff on my chest, because again, I didn't have a podcast back then. I do now. So here we go. James, a servant of God, of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. Now again, we were talking about that whole scattered part. Diaspora. Again, the people are scattered across the earth. Most of the time it is forceful. Some of the other times it's from wanting to discover what is else in this planet, what is else around the land that we are in. Which is a normal thing. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. So, again, like I have said before in biblical study, you understand that whether from the culture or just from a misinterpretation of the culture they were in, a lot of things they just X'd out the women. And it was wrong, because again, you got the life givers here. And we'll get into a little bit of that here when we talk about this TV show Echo. No spoilers for those who haven't seen it, but we're going to get into it a little bit. So, people, folks, my peeps, if we can make the Bible a little bit more understandable for folks, okay? Be okay with the fact when you get into all these different things that come against you in life to hurt you, to tempt you. Okay? Why? Why would I want to be happy? Why would I want to count that joyful? Where is the good in that? Knowing this, that it is trying your beliefs, and in doing so, it works out patience. It makes you, when you look at the word patience and stuff like that, it deals with the fact where you're okay with every situation. It makes you complete. You can know how to be when you got little money. And you can know because you've studied. See, the idea of that word meekness that we were talking about in the last episode, where you get yourself in a certain mindset. Well, how do you get yourself in those mindsets? One, by study, but the other one happens when things happen to you. Because what's supposed to happen when things happen to you, many people react. It's a normal thing. It doesn't mean you're some weirdo or anything like that. Normal, you react. That's built in the people. It's built in you. And at the same time, realize that when you react, you've got to realize, like they talk about in science, there is an equal and opposite reaction, which is why when people talk about violence, they speak on it improperly. But then again, in a society where you have, what's the word that we talked about a couple episodes ago? Equivocal. When you have your language built on an equivocal base, you can interchange words too easily. And when people have a very nefarious mindset behind them, they use that to their advantage very well. Very well. Most of the laws and everything you see in February, we're going to get into the black codes here because, again, much of what you see today that happens to everybody is based in those codes. The slave codes and the black codes that it then switched over to it's a very serious thing, y'all. Very serious thing. And it's something to watch out for from the legality standpoint so that you can stand up for yourself in a court of law. This is for real. It was what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. went against in the fight for what is called, quote unquote, civil rights. Again, every person is down here to share this thing. And what you find when people don't is all of this mess, including him losing his life, because people did not want to listen to the message of sharing. Even so, to the point where they, again, just like what you saw with Black Lives Matter, and this whole Antifa battle, you bring up distraction and dissension in order to conquer. It is called divide and conquer. Oldest trick in the book. We have to be very careful to constantly always stay studied up. Again, as they use the phrase in church, prayed up. And aware, again, how black folks said it back in the 60s and 70s was stay woke. They twist that word today when they talk in a detractive way by saying woke consciousness and all the other little catchphrases you hear today. But I am telling you, it is important to grasp a hold of the fact you've got to wake up to see that which is putting you asleep. That's why you can be happy in these diverse temptations, because it's going to make you aware. The patience part of it, part of the thing that comes with patience is an awareness that you are waiting. That awareness, that consciousness. That's something to get happy about. So, somebody wants to make fun of you at work because of whatever you do, certain, I don't know, for people who are from different nations of the world, different ways they dress, different colors they wear, anything of that nature. They want to make fun of you. Remember, the anger is going to be there. Again, the Bible talks about you can be angry, just don't err. Be careful in how you use your anger. Anger is a natural reaction, just like sadness, just like happiness. Again, the movie Inside Out, and the next one that's coming out, Inside Out 2, y'all pay attention to that movie. This is for real. I tell you what, you got to talk about a person and the wholeness of a person. See, when we were talking about that whole thing with chakra, look at the different things in it. I know what Christians will say and all that. Look at it first. And then you study it up against biblical thought process, and then tell me where the wrong is, because there isn't. It's a shame that the ideas in the Bible that actually match what is shown in the picture of the chakra is not it's not even explained, but they're there in the Bible. Talking about how the light of the Word of God goes in and sees all the inward parts of a person. It's a verse right. This verse is right there in the Bible, folks. They've been telling you a thing because they want to keep you bound. Again, we've already talked about this, the slave Bible and stuff like that. These things were made to, again, you take holy notions and twist them. That's just the name of the game. So, let patience have her perfect work. Thank God you start seeing the word her in there. She on so much he's. Man, anyway. Let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect. And see, again, complete. The word perfect deals with that idea of complete, not making mistakes. So this is where people get off on this thing, perfection. Something that was taught to me a long time ago. You don't want to go searching for perfection. You want to search for excellence. And again, you hear that term with black folks called black excellence. Excellence is what we're after, folks. Where we're doing things complete. You know, you see certain things that are done around the world, especially in business, where people are not doing things complete. They leave little holes and stuff like that because they want to leave leeway for them to just be, how can I say this, to just be absolutely mean to people, to always bend the rules in their favor. That's a person who is not AKA perfect or operating in excellence. You're operating in the opposite. You should be aware of people like that. See, this is that stay woke thing. You got to be aware of people like that. There's tons of them in the world, just like there are tons of them in the world who count it all joy when they fall into diverse temptations. What do you believe? That you may be perfect, entire, wanting nothing. See, this is this idea of completeness. You good with nothing, you're good with something. You know how to operate when you're sick. You know how to operate when you're healthy. You know how to operate when you're sad and depressed. You know how to operate when you're happy. You know how to operate when you're angry and when you're not. Again, we were talking about this idea of responsibility. You become a complete person. Again, other religions in the world say it a different way. But other beliefs in the world say it a different way. Same idea, though. The idea is to hop, jump, skip. It's to go after being complete. And we're just going to skip on down here for the sake of time here. Another part of this thing talks about being double-minded. Again, you get so real popular song is the Two-Step from Sierra. Let's just be honest here. It's cool for the dance floor, but when you do it in your mind, it's a little dangerous. This double-minded here is where you're never sure on one thing. See, even on this podcast, we talk about a different view. I am very sure in the fact that people were made and created. The people are in need of redemption on a serious level. There are certain things in my psyche that I truly believe are real. See, again, what do you believe, right? So now, you get all the way down to verse 13 in James 1, and this is when it gets funky. When we're talking about temptation. Again, I use the word man because we just forgot about the rest of genders here. Let no one. Let no one say that he is there when they are tempted, that you are tempted of God. Now, we've already talked this idea of people blaming God for things, right? Because that's not really the case. The game has been designed. It's down here with certain parameters. How you going to play the game? That and people constantly fighting that. That's the issue. See, we're not talking about death that happens to folks because, again, death is happening to everybody's family. Certain people are losing family members of which they hold dear all over the planet. Some in more percentages than others. Hence the balance. We've got to realize that this is just not. It's not arbitrary. Like life is fair. Like we went over that the definition of the word life is fair. What is not fair is how people operate in life. That part is not fair. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth God any person. I just let that thought soak in. I get it because of what people have told you about God. Just not the case, folks. It's just not the case. Why would you make all this and then make something that now unmakes it all? That's not, there are certain designs here that have to happen for what people have done. See, this is not that, but that's not the design. Again, this thing has consequences and rewards. You're not gonna free will. You're not just gonna do whatever you want in that regard. You'll have free will, but you're not changing the whole of the program. I mean, how high up the ladder do you think this is going? It's for our own good, in reality. Again, and we have all these things down here: sexual expression. Different foods to have, now people call them drugs, but again, different drugs to take. See, again, the idea is the responsibility behind it. I understand when to flip people's minds out, but it's about the responsibility behind it. Every person is tempted when they are drawn away of their own lust and enticed. And when lust has brought forth or conceived, of course, like a woman conceiving, when once the conception, birth, once that's happened, it brings forth error. And that error, this is what the word sin is talking about: erring, missing the mark. That's what the word sin means. When that's done, that brings forth death. This is what happens when people are tempted, folks. So, I mean, that's not coming from the one who is of light. That's coming from that's where the penalty is. That's the adversary. That this is evil inspired stuff. Which we need to watch out for, and the book of James goes into it in depth in many different ways. So where do we go from there? Where do we go from there? The idea of oppression. Some people, some people hold to this thought process that they use it as a scapegoat. When someone is upset over something and they don't really want to deep dive into why a person is upset over something, they just point to the fact of how upset a person is. They did this with Dr. King in many respects, to the standpoint of, it's just talking about violence. Peace and violence was a big thing back then in the 60s and 70s. Then again, you had the Vietnam War where, we'll just leave that at that. We'll let y'all study. And again, homework right there. You want to know about the inner workings of the government and the nation in which you live on, which again, these lands we live on is a beautiful thing. Let's be honest. Very beautiful. All you got to do is travel, or for most folks who don't have enough money to do it. But when you start looking across this great land, you drive a couple of states, just look at what's going on. Past all the stuff that humans have burnt down and all that. Like look at the land and whatnot, and you will see how beautiful it is, right? All the different animals, all the stuff, right? People have turned this thing into a thing of which it should not be. People have done that. This ozone layer thing, people did that. All the different things with ecology and the environment and stuff like that, where that's people doing that. Yeah, now see, again, we're talking about defenses that are in people's minds, right? Of the ones we have heard like a million times. Yeah, so some of these things will cause damage, but the earth has been built to replenish itself. This is a natural thing. You can look up all the different ways the earth, you can Google search it, how the earth replenishes itself, whether it's the sea, whether it's the air, wherever it is. This thing was as I like to say, when the great designer, the architect of architects made this is flawless, folks. Same as people. Again, we're talking about you have free will of choice, and people have been using it improperly and to their own destruction. We shouldn't be killing not one black person over the fact they want to go to school. There shouldn't be one law coming from any court anywhere on the planet stopping them from going to school. And yet, when you look at, again, we're talking about stuff that was going on 50s, 60s, all this time that Dr. Martin Luther King was living. When you have someone like owners of football teams in pictures. Now, again, we understand that's not the only person, right? And I will go on record and say that I am a Dallas Cowboy fan. Okay. But for those of y'all who are not, don't care about football, or for those of you who care about football and wonder why, how could a kid from New York like a team from Texas? I don't know. Maybe it's my ancestors out in Dallas. I don't know. I digress. Still, though, when you got pictures of somebody being involved in something as horrible as segregation, see when we talk about separation and segregation, two different things. Black people being able to have a community in which they can live and thrive, i.e. multiple Black Wall Streets, not just Tulsa, where we were living in peace and trading and commercing and doing all the stuff, right? And because people didn't want it, they just destroyed the towns. That's a problem, folks. That's a problem. This warlike mentality has got to stop. If you cut off those who are giving you profit, if you do not give them the proper profit, no one's gonna profit, folks. It's the way the God of heaven and earth made it. Again, we're talking about bringing the thing full circle here, and that's what Dr. King was fighting for. Now, we're using the word fight. See, again, violence. People always take to the physical force using bats and knives and guns and weapons and John Wick and anything that we've ever seen where we've seen some level of fighting, right? But when you talk on the word violence, that's not the only meaning of the word. Hence this verse in the Bible. So we're going to go in because, again, it's about giving the different view. And me personally, I'm done listening to what people have been doing here. Because it causes division on a serious level. So in Matthew chapter 11, Jesus is talking about John the Baptist because people are talking trash about John the Baptist. You heard me mention about John the Baptist. And shout out to, though, can I say this? It's been a while since I did a shout out here. One, shout out to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. How about that? Definitely applause to this true saint. See, again, you got to get your hands a little bit dirty, folks. Again, like we talked last time, a surgeon healing the body, repairing the body from serious damage. This is more than just a Band-Aid on a little paper cut you get, right? Different injuries need different repair. And in this case, when a surgeon is doing surgery on you, you got to get blood on your hands. You don't heal the person without getting blood on your hands. You got to make cuts and incisions and marks that leave scars that can heal and repair over time. But you still got to get your hands in there and get dirty. You cannot do this from afar. You've got to get involved. It's not going nowhere. Just doing this, walking on by like the Good Samaritan. It's not going to work that way, guys. We have got to get involved. I understand this neutrality thing, and everybody keeps going back to the Switzerland thing, right? Again, you got to understand the world's a stage and there's certain players involved. You got to make a thing look like it's neutral when in reality you're not being neutral. Many times people don't want to get into. You've seen this in the movie Star Wars. when people join up for the rebellion against the empire. You've seen this in many. Another one of these movies I was going to get into, on top of TV shows with Echo and What If, was also The Hunger Games. Guys, what a powerful movie this last Hunger Games. Hunger Games in general is a powerful movie series. Okay, because again, the game is designed to kill you. Oh man. The game literally is designed to kill you, to rob you of any dignity. It's another one of those great quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King. Never let anybody make you feel like you're less than. How dare a government build an electoral college we still use today that considers black people 3/5 a person? How can you continue to use, oh, well, that's not really what, again, it's cool to, when do we stop giving excuses against a thing and start making excuses for a thing? When do we do that? Again, especially if you're talking about wanting change, people who speak on wanting change. This affects another thing that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was involved in was labor. Shocking that he was involved in labor rights, because again, much like what the Bible talks about, you do not withhold wages from the workers. They are due their wage. And bosses who are nefarious, to say the least, deceived is another word, keep playing around with people's profits solely they can put their profit they just took from someone in their pocket. You're telling me now that the balance of life wouldn't be to constantly keep fighting for the workers, and yet people got ticked off at those strikes last year. There was so much online of people getting upset. Rich folk ain't supposed to be. Guys, if the poor you will have with you always is a thing, the idea is not that we want to run away from them. The idea is to help them. Jesus is letting you know there's an opportunity to be good to somebody always. When do we pick up the calling? Irregardless if it means our life. Again, if you love this life, you will lose it. How many different people we've seen that have fought so much to hold on to riches and stuff like that, either go literally, lose some mental ground and stuff like that of the words we call nuts, crazy, right? Physical ailments. So you just look on down the line through history, whether you're talking celebrities or anybody famous like that, there's a cost, guys, when you put possessions over people. There's a high price to pay. I personally, for all these years, I have sat in the pew in churches listening to people from now again, this is why I say things like incomplete thought. Because in an objective thought process, I realize that not all people are being nefarious. They're speaking from their heart on a certain level, but from some of what they're saying is incomplete in its thought. God does not want you chasing the bag, folks. He wants you chasing after people. That's why you've got that story in the Bible about being fishers of people. It's about getting involved in lives, which is much more rewarding than the money you can get from a person. Yet, because we work down here, and that's a thing that drives down here, you've got to buy and trade, right? So money is necessary. Again, when you cut off one group of people from profiting, you cut down your own profit because you are connected with people. Hence what Martin Luther King Jr. is talking about when he keeps saying this idea of black people being together with white people. Again, when you go back into world history, we were connected, folks. We did trade and commerce with each other. The problems started when you had greed enter the mix. Then you started coming up with silly things like making differentials in who gets stuff based on skin color. But that was never an issue to start. Again, all you got to do is go back, start doing your anthropological studies, start doing your world history studies past the 1500s, and you're going to see all kinds of stuff. The reason you had issues with piracy today had nothing to do with the idea that piracy was so bad. People were holding down other folks from having proper profit. Do you know what that causes? It's theft, aka piracy. Now, if you just want to come down on the pirate, that's all well and good. But what about the cause in which it causes the piracy? What about that which causes the piracy? When do we speak on that? And you notice you don't really have that many conversations about that. You know why? Because, again, we're talking about setting up and keeping greed running. If you want balance, though, that can't be the case. You got to share. And you start to realize when you look over life in general, this is supposed to be about sharing. So you get all the way down. Jesus goes on and on and on to talk about the thing. And I think this is where we will, we'll set up to end. We'll spend the next 10 minutes here just talking about these different TV shows and this verse here. So, let's find it. This is Matthew chapter 11. There it is. So, this is them talking about, like I said, they were talking about John. As they departed, Jesus began, this is verse 7 in Matthew chapter 11. Jesus began to say unto the multitudes concerning John, what ye went out into the wilderness to see? Like, read it, break it down, right? We said break it down in a couple episodes, break it down. What did you think you were going to see when you went out to the wilderness? A reed shaking with the wind. So again, reeds, bamboo reeds, all that kind of thing. Just, something just flying in the wind. Was that what you think you're going to see as far as concerning John? Did you think he was just going to be shaken by the wind out there? You ask the question again in the next verse. A person clothed in soft raiment, then that's not to say that soft raiment is wrong. You wear clothes and it ain't rough and on. When he's not saying it from that standpoint, he's talking about it from the standpoint of a person in this magnitude. Did you think they were going to be wearing soft clothes? Behold, they that wear soft clothes are in kings' houses. So again, Jesus is challenging people's thought process on what you think people are going to look like that are involved in very serious matters of life and balance. They're not always going to look like what you think they're going to look like. And many people today discredit those who actually can give real serious help because they think they're supposed to look a certain way. No, that is not always the case. Churches go through this a lot with who they allow in their congregation because they have to look. Everybody is still assuming everyone's supposed to look like the priests. Again, that was for the priest to look like a certain thing during ministry and speaking to the people. That has nothing to do, which is actually only one way of speaking to the people. You didn't see Jesus with robes on with jewels in them and stuff like that, did you? Nope. Was Jesus not a priest and a minister then? See, again, we're talking about challenging, which is what Jesus did constantly. Those who were of the religious power of the day, those of the governmental power of the day, Jesus spoke out against. No different than Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There's a certain air and a spirit and an attitude that connects people. Just like you hear about the Force in Star Wars. The same thing. What else did you think you were going to go see? A prophet? Yea, I say unto you, he is more than a prophet. That's what it means when it says, I say unto you, and more than a prophet. Jesus is saying that John the Baptist's role was more than just prophesying about a thing. It was actually in action. You saw it. He was there talking about the importance of Christ's life. and what was to come. People. I started mentioning this earlier. It's really cool when you got somebody who will stand in the gap with you, man. Like Moses, when he was weak there, and you're holding up you got your arms, you're holding up the Red Sea. Your arms are getting tired. Actually, that actually might not be that. It might be a different. That might be a different. Actually, I think it is. It's a different story in the Bible where Moses' arms start to get tired, I believe, during a battle. Aaron and I believe one other person go to hold up his arms because he couldn't anymore. He's physically tired. It's something in the trust, talking about that other verse about the troubles of life, right? And walking through them and going through them. It's really important to have somebody hold your hands, man. It really is. It really is. There's a shared power that comes from that. It's also the same thing that is constantly being held back against, or being discouraged, I should say. That's why you have certain things in the black codes where people weren't allowed to gather in a certain amount of people. Funny, in the Bible, it talks about where 2 or 3 gather together, there I am in the midst. And yet people came down the road, and this also included Christians who signed off on this kind of silly mess with slavery and everything else, where, or so-called Christians, I should say, where on the back end, you couldn't gather. You can only have certain people. With Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. specifically, there are certain things there where I want to say it was a certain college coalition where at one point they couldn't gather. Can only have a certain amount gathering. It's silly. Yet it's okay for these other organizations in the company. I guess if you want to look at the union as a big old company, but as a government, it's okay for them to gather together. But it's not okay for somebody. You have to ask those questions. I understand they're uncomfortable, and I understand it stirs up a whole lot. But you got to ask those questions. If you want a full view of a thing, you gotta look at the whole story. So he goes on down to say all that just to say this. In the days, this is verse 12 now. In the days of John the Baptist, until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. Many people have used this verse. A lot of people haven't even, but all you got to do is do a study on the word violent and its etymology, and it unlocks the truth in this verse. One, this is definitely a double meaning. Jesus always speaks in parable, allegory, right? Many times. So, those in the kingdom of heaven, those standing on the side of righteousness, those dealing in justice, in purity, in sharing, are going to suffer physical violence. Or also, as the word violence that I've broke down on another episode, deals with actual passion about something, right? Now, the violent take it by force. You're talking about that which is the constant struggle, folks. That's what Jesus is talking about. John the Baptist was a person that was uttering in that which is to bring ultimate balance, which was Christ and his life on earth and his sacrifice to help bring things back to balance, that we see still play out till this day, especially when you have racism still being an issue, because those who think they hold power can continue to keep power, and you can't. It's not yours to control. Hence all the problems you have. People making laws and unmaking laws and remaking laws in a constant struggle to keep that which is not theirs. We're meant to share this down here. Those who stand against that, that's where they start to manipulate and say that they're speaking violent speech and all those kinds of things. Guys, this is why you have to come together. Band together under a cause here that is, hey, we're going to stand for right toward people. We're going to stand for right toward those who are transgender, homosexual, those who are black, those who are white, those who are Asian, and those who are native, those who have disabilities and those who do not. Healthcare is another real big one, folks. So in these movies here, Won the Hunger Games. Really good. Really good movie. I really do suggest people go watch that movie. However you stream it, go to the movie theater if it's still there, whatever. Go watch that Hunger Games. I believe it's the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I believe that's the name. That's the whole title of the movie. A powerful, powerful movie on the design in which a government executes its wholesome of people. I know people want to bury their head in the sand under the terms of patriotism and nationalism. Again, what are you defending? We talked about that with the Veterans Day episode. What are you defending? There are serious issues there, folks. And this is not out of hate. Dr. King was right. And again, protecting yourself and going around keeping yourself protecting, knowing how to protect yourself does not mean you promote violence. It means you know it's coming and you're ready for it. That has nothing to do with promoting violence, actually. No one ever says that about Asian culture. Don't you ever wonder that? You gotta start training your mind, renewing your mind to the levels of what I call tricknology, from what I've heard from another on another podcast. It's the levels of tricknology and deceit, lies, twistings. People study how to do this, how to take language and twist it, how to put people at odds against each other. Again, this is about divide and conquer. It's an old war strategy. People have been studying this for a long time. This TV show Echo, again, another really good one that I suggest folks watch. It goes, what you're starting to see now, folks, is, and especially in Hollywood, and of course, once you, as I've always said, as soon as you see it on the movie screen or the TV screen, someone has been paying attention enough to what has happened in real life in the background to either A, bring something to light, B, make money from it, or C, the combination of both. And in the you saw it with The Killers of the Flower Moon last year, which is a powerful movie. Again, I haven't gone to see it, but I know of the historical account. Again, while you had that horrible massacre in the 1920s in Tulsa, tearing down one of many Black Wall Streets, I will reference that again. The same time, you had that mess go on in Osage County in Oklahoma, where people, those of European descent, as I like to say, raided that county and burnt it to the ground to take the oil that was there so that they could make money from that which was already someone else's, because again, you had natives living on these lands. Look at the colors of people, folks. Look at the characteristics in people's faces. Start putting two and two together. You had a lot of people already living here. Traveling, executing trade and commerce, having their own way of living and playing games. You know, in the TV show, they actually show them playing stickball, folks. They show natives playing stickball, having built up societies and towns, civilization, as the word goes. Europe came and distracted that, twisted the infighting that was already in the natives and just used it and twisted it more to turn them into agents of evil. Many humans like that. It's again, it did not help. It helped one group of people and it hurt everyone else. And that same thing goes on today. Its start was back then. It shows the struggle of the comic book anti-hero. A lot of anti-heroes in comic books today, more so than there was back in the 50s and 60s and so on. Of Maya Lopez, who her code name in the comics is Echo. Part dealing with her powers. In the TV shows how this character, this version of the character has her powers. similar to Miss Marvel, where it's coming from a power that comes connected to her ancestors. I understand when we're talking about Christians, they have a problem with this idea with ancestors. However, I'm going to leave this verse with y'all in conclusion. So there is a verse in the Bible that talks about being surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. I don't know if I've gone through this before, maybe during the Halloween episode. Sorry, I'm typing here as we do. Again, I like I said, I like doing this in real time. Because I don't want people thinking that I have gone off some deep end somewhere and don't really know what I'm talking about. I have sat here now under the learning tree for a long time. You know, I'm 43. Had a lot of aspirations for learning and teaching and helping people for a long time now. So here you go. Hebrews 12:1. Wherefore, seeing we are also compassed, surrounded, that's what that word means, about with so great a cloud of witnesses. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin, the error, the missing the mark, which doth, Old English, so easily beset. Again, us is italicized. They added that word in so you could just say beset and leave it at that. They added italicized words because they thought they were making it easier to understand. And in many cases, they weren't. Again, this translation of the King James was a gift to King James. So you have to keep that in mind when you're reading it. It doesn't change the heart of the thing, but it definitely opens up a light into what they were trying to do there. Let us run with patience. Says that word patience again. Let us run with patience the race that is set before us. I'll end on verse 2. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of faith, or of belief, who for the joy that was set before, we just talked about that joy thing there at the beginning here. The joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame. See, again, if you love this life, you will lose it. But if you despise this life, that's literally what that's the word the verse uses. You got to hate this life, man. You got to despise it on a certain level. This isn't cool. This isn't part of the cool kids. You got that Mean Girls movie coming out, which is going to be good. That's another one that's going to be good to watch because, again, it's this idea of just, I'm going to take from you and make up some stupid pre-notion that you're not good enough to take from you. Whatever it is, your influence, your money, whatever it is. Again, we're going to get into it on Valentine's Day, including your family, your spouse, all that kind of thing. Things people don't even teach folks before they start dating, which is a shame. But we'll get into it, guys and gals. We'll definitely get into it. That's pay. If anything, that those 3 couple episodes coming up, they're going to be good ones. Let us run the race with patience set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of faith, or of belief, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. You got to see the end picture. And we have the ability to do it. It's a bigger picture here than just going after some silly raise they want to give you at work. We're talking long-lasting wealth that affects generation after generation, and you ain't got to steal land from somebody to do it. You can do it by being good to people and defending righteousness and truth, just like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So, there's a whole lot more that I had here, but again, this is just Ending before I end the TV show What If. Now, even though Cohorti, Echo is Choctaw, it deals with the Choctaw tribe. Of the few, they whittled that thing down, man. Of the civilized tribes and all that kind of thing, and recognized tribe, man, they whittled that down. I wish whatever little thing they got covered somewhere of all these other different tribes of people, man, oh man, if we knew. But anyway, in What If, you have a Mohawk girl named Cohorti, spelled Kahhoori. Again, languages across the world. It's again something to study and pay attention to. But yet, she gets some powers here from a space stone from Asgard. Well, that was in Asgard at the time, I should say. That's probably a better way of saying it. Defends her people against the Spanish conquistadors of the time. We all remember the 14 and 1500s, right? And good old Columbus coming from Spain. Because again, in Europe, you had multiple nations that were involved in this takeover here on these lands. Spain was one of them. That's not to hate on anybody. That's to hate on the wrong that was done. Or I should say to bring light to what was done. So that true healing can begin. But regardless of that, and you see her powers, you see her stop that which happened in Florida, where the conquistadors took over Florida, which was cool to watch. It was really cool to watch, guys, because again, it's talking about balance that needs to happen, and it don't need to happen through violence. You never see her attack these people until she's attacked. Everybody always twists certain things to meet their ends. But in truth, you got to be okay defending yourself, regardless of what people say about you or what they do to you. So that's what I got for y'all today. Thank you for listening in. Thank you for tuning in. Again, places like Spotify and stuff like this give a platform for people to be able to speak, and it's big. It gives the opportunity for things to be said that must be said. So I thank y'all, and again, stay tuned, and until next time, truly happy Dr. Martin Luther King Day Jr. Day, and look to find the beauty in a different view.